Hello, good morning, and a very warm welcome to this new session on Shakespeare. This class is for the course code ENM 6212. This class is particularly for the students who are currently in their ME and they are pursuing it in English literature. So, in this particular lecture, this is the third lecture of the series, and we'll be talking about King Lear, which we have started in the last lecture. So, it is a tragedy where the main theme is that of power and jealousy. And this is something that we have started in the last session, but now we'll be moving forward with that, and we'll also be discussing block number 3, which deals with the tempest. So we'll be discussing the unit number 11 to 13, right? So right, so we'll be discussing unit number 9 and 10, and then unit number 11 to 12, which deals with tempest. So let us start with the block division. This is something that we have discussed 2-3 times, because this is going to be the third session and we discuss it in every session. So we are done with Midsummer Night Dream, which is block number 1. It is a romantic comedy by Shakespeare. We are done with this part. Now in the last lecture, we have started with King Lear, which is a tragedy based on the King Lear and his tragic flaw. What was the tragic flaw? His major tragic flaw was that he is not able to make right decision. He is not able to judge people in the right manner, right? So he is choosing the pretentious daughters instead of the loyal daughter Cordelia. That was his major tragic flaw. So the theme of literary versus literal blindness is there, which is getting represented in the entire tragedy. So this is something that we have started with in the last lecture. Now we'll be concluding with King Lear, right? So we'll be concluding till at number 5 of King Lear, and then we'll be starting with the another comedy by Shakespeare, which is Tempest, right? So this is what we'll be doing in today's lecture. We'll be concluding King Lear. So we'll discuss about the Act 4 and Act 5 of King Lear, and then we'll move forward to Tempest, which is another comedy by Shakespeare, right? So I hope these things are clear to you. These are the things that we'll be doing in today's lecture. Right, so we were discussing about the block division, the course division. So we are done with this. We'll complete this, and we'll start with the third block, which deals with the tempest. And the fourth block, which is the last block, it deals with Hamlet, and we'll start it in the next lecture, right? So I hope this is clear with you. Now, since you are aware that what are the things that we'll be covering in today's lecture, let us focus on the learning goals. Let us focus on the goals, the objectives that we are having in relation to today's lecture. So we'll be understanding the progression of Lear's madness into self-realization and tragic insight. So in the last lecture, we have discussed till the climactic act, that is till act number 5, where we see that there was a physical storm. And that physical storm was embodiment of the psychological condition of King Lear. It was basically reflecting whatever was going on in the mind of the protagonist, that is King Lear, what kind of situation he was going through. So the storm was actually a physical representation of that psychological condition. So this is something that we have done in the last lecture, right? So now we'll be moving forward with that, and we'll understand the reason that how initially he is going into madness, but that madness is also helping him in realizing the truth, in having a proper realization that what wrong he has done to Cordelia. So because he has taken a wrong decision of banishing Cordelia, which was the only faithful daughter that King Lear was having. So he's now having the consequences, the repercussion he has to face for his actions, because he has done something very wrong with a very loyal person. So now he's facing the repercussions, right? So he's having that sort of realization, which we'll be talking in these particular acts. Now we'll analyze the themes of suffering as a part to moral awareness. So as I have already told you that when King Lear is descending into madness, this is also a phase where he's having a realization of his faults. He's having realization of his mistakes. So the moral awareness is coming through the path of suffering. Then examine the concept of justice and its ambiguity in the tragic ending. So whenever there is a tragedy, right, so there are some characters who are having a tragic fate, there are some characters who are dying, there are some characters who are getting murdered. So we'll understand that if there is a good person and he's having a tragic fate, right, then this is not justice, right? I agree that this is not justice. But if we talk about the character of King Lear, so whatever is happening with him is because of his decision that he has taken in the initial part of the play, right? So you cannot completely say that all of this is happening because of his fate. It is happening because of the decision that King Lear has taken. But in terms of Cordelia, what is happening with Cordelia, it is definitely injustice, it is not poetic justice. So poetic justice is actually a term which is given by Cranmer. So Cranmer has given this idea of poetic justice, that if you are representing a good character in a play, that particular character needs to be rewarded, and if you are representing an evil character, that evil character needs to be punished. But in Shakespeare's play, particularly the tragedies, what is happening, even the good characters are getting punished. So we can say that at some point of time in the tragedies of Shakespeare, there is lack of poetic justice, right? We cannot see proper justice given to the characters based on their virtues and values, right? Okay, so these are the things that we'll discuss. Then we'll evaluate the role of Cordelia as a symbol of forgiveness and virtue. We'll also be discussing that how Cordelia is symbolic of forgiveness. She is a symbolic of innocence. She is symbolic of virtue. Because even if she has to face a lot of hardship, she is not giving up the goodness, inherent goodness that she is having within her, right? So no matter how many hardships she is facing, she is still choosing the path of virtue, she is still choosing the path of goodness. So that is the difference between Cordelia and King Lear, right? He has taken a wrong decision because of which all of them are suffering. But Cordelia is a character who has remained on the path of virtue, but still she is having a tragic fate. So that is why poetic justice is not there in the play, right? Okay, so then we'll trace the resolution of parallel plots. Lear and Gloucester, these are the two parallel plots that we have seen in King Lear. Then interpret the use of disguise. So disguise, or basically masking your identity, is something which is very common in the writings of Shakespeare. Then we'll analyze the theme of power and control through Prospero's authority, right? So we'll move towards Tempest. Then we'll understand the significance of the storm as a dramatic and symbolic device. So even in Tempest, there is a storm. So in King Lear also, in the climatic act, that is act number 3, we have seen that there was a storm. But when we talk about the Tempest, it is starting with a storm. So instead of the climatic act, it is happening in the very exposition part. So this is something that you can remember, that both these plays, the tragedy and the comedy, they both have a storm, but both the cases, the storm represent different things. Then we'll examine colonial tension through Prospero and Caliban's relationship. So the Tempest is also having notions of colonial power, representation of colonial power. So we'll discuss this in relation to Prospero and Caliban. We'll evaluate the contrast between Ariel's obedience and Caliban's resistance. Then we'll explore illusion and magic as tools of manipulation and narrative control. So I hope you must have remembered that when we have done Midsummer Night Dream, so there were some elements of fantastical magic, right? So there was magic, there was fantastical animals, there was fairies, right? So there was a supernatural world that was getting represented. In the same manner, when we are talking about this particular comedy Tempest, there are also use of some fantastical elements, supernatural elements, magical powers, right? So when you are making distinction between the comedy and tragedies by Shakespeare, you can also give this point, that in the comedies he's making use of disguise. This is there in tragedy as well. But when we talk about the use of what we were discussing, when we talk about this use of fantastical element. When we talk about the use of magic, so magic element is there definitely more prominent in the comedies, right? So you can make a distinction like that. In tragedies he's not making use of magical and fantastical elements, but in comedies he is making use of that. But even in tragedies they make use of supernatural elements. Like if we talk about Hamlet, he makes use of ghosts, so that is also a supernatural element. Not fantastical, but supernatural is there. Okay, so we were discussing that we'll evaluate that how Ariel and Caliban are in contrast with each other. We'll explore illusion and magic. Then we'll assess the development of Miranda. Miranda is the female protagonist in Tempest. That how Miranda and Ferdinand's relationship is developing and how they represent an idealized form of love. Okay, so these are the things that we'll be doing. First, we'll be starting with act number 4, which comprises your unit number 9. So this is act number 4 of King Lear. It is based on suffering, transformation, and moral awakening. So act number 4 is dealing with the falling action. So act 4 marks a turning point where physical and emotional suffering leads to insights and transformation. So this particular act is marking as a turning point where the physical and emotional suffering are leading to the insight and transformation. So after being blinded, so Gloucester has been literally blinded. Gloucester experiences literal and metaphorical darkness. So what is happening when Gloucester is being blinded, his eyes has been gouged out, he is experiencing both kind of blindness. He's literally blind and he's also metaphorically blind because he's not able to make the right decision. So he's attempted suicide at Dover. So what is he doing? He is trying to attempt a suicide. Interrupted by Edgar's disguise, but he's getting interrupted by Edgar, the legitimate son who he has banished because he was manipulated by Edgar. So he has banished the rightful son, right? But that legitimate son is coming back to help his father. So when he's trying to attempt a suicide at the Dover cliff, what is happening? Edgar is helping him. So what is happening? He's taking him to a plain area. Okay. And then he's asking that now you can jump, right? Because he's jumping from a plain area. There is no height. So he is not dying. Now when he's not dying, so Edgar is manipulating him that it is God's choice that he has prevented you from dying. So God decision, so you should respect God's decision. So he's fooling you that you have fallen off from a cliff, but you are still alive. So this is the choice that God has made, and you should follow the orders of God. So this kind of illusion he was creating in the mind of Gloucester so that he can stay alive. Right, so he's disguised, so he is symbolizing the fragile boundary between despair and hope. Edgar's deception here is compassionate, so he's decepting, he's making use of disguise, but he's not doing anything wrong. He's disguising himself in order to help his father, so there is a compassionate effort. So it prevents Gloucester's death, so it helps in the prevention of Gloucester's death and initiates the moral awakening. Meanwhile, King Lear, wandering in madness, begins to gain clarity. So when King Lear is wandering in madness, he is having a self-realization that what wrong he has done to Cordelia. So in his madness, he is also having that moral awakening. He is having that realization of what wrong he has done to his daughter. Right? Then madness becomes a paradoxical source of truth, stripping away his former arrogance. So what is happening? Madness is turning into a paradoxical source of truth. What is paradox? Paradox is something it is a situation where two contrasting things are placed against each other. Right? So when we are saying madness and when we are saying truth, so both of these are completely contrasting. But this paradoxical combination is helping in the revelation of truth. Right, so this is act 4. Then if we talk about act number 5, which is about conclusion, so there is a tragic resolution and the collapse of order. Because this is a tragedy, so instead of having a reconciliation, we are having a complete collapse of order. So the battle between the British forces and the French army, so the French army is Cordelia's husband's army, which is trying to protect King Lear and Cordelia. So the British forces is Gondrel and Regan's forces combined, and French is Cordelia forces. So what is happening in the battle? So there is a battle between the British forces and the French army, which ends in the defeat for Cordelia and Lear. What is happening? The French forces are getting defeated. That means both Cordelia and Lear are getting defeated. So they are captured because they have lost the battle. So both Cordelia and Lear, they are captured, and Edmund secretly orders their execution, and Edmund is also ordering their execution. Right. So this is what is happening in the final act. Now the act highlights the ruthless pursuit of power devoid of morality. So the subplot resolves as Edgar confronts Edmund in a duel. So the subplot of Gloucester, Edgar, and Edmund is getting resolved when Edgar is confronting Edmund, the illegitimate son, in a duel, and they are having a duel, and Edgar is defeating Edmund, restoring a sense of justice. So only in the subplot we can see that a sort of justice has been restored. So before dying, Edmund attempts to reverse his order. So before dying, Edmund is trying to have a sort of repentance, and for that, what is he doing? He is actually deciding that I should uh, take away my order of the killing of Lear and of the killing of Lear and Cordelia, but it was too late. So when he decide to repent, when he decide to take back that decision that he has already given for the execution of both Lear and Cordelia, it's too late for that to be reversed, right? So only in the subplot we can see there is a sort of moral justice because Edmund is dying, and Edgar, who was actually a good character, he is winning the duel. So internal conflict among the sisters and disastrously. There is an internal conflict that is going on between these evil sisters as well, Gondrel and Regan. Both of them have fallen in love with Edmund, and to get the love of Edmund, what they are doing, Gondrel is poisoning Regan and then kills her herself. Gondrel has poisoned her sister Regan, and after poisoning her, she's also killing her own self. So this reflects the destructive nature of unchecked ambition. So this is also reflective that if you are moving in the direction of ambition and you are only focused on attaining power, but there is no moral consciousness behind that, then it will eventually lead to destruction. So the most devastating moment in Cordelia's death, followed by Leo's grief-stricken entrance carrying her body. So what is happening? Because Edmund has already given the order of execution, so Cordelia has been executed. And when Leo sees that Cordelia has died, he was completely grief-stricken, and he enters carrying the body of Cordelia in his hands. So Leo's final movement oscillate between hope and despair. So after seeing the dead body of Cordelia, after holding the body in his arms, he finally realized that what are the things that he has done wrong, and whatever has happened with Cordelia is because of the actions of Leo. So in the final moments, he's completely in despair, and he decides to leave the world as well. So leaving the audience uncertain whether he dies believing Cordelia still lives. So the play ends with a bleak vision. The play is ending with a bleak vision, but the commonly accepted notion is that after seeing the death of Cordelia, King Lear also attempts suicide and he dies. Right. So this is the common ending that the play ends with a bleak vision, although justice is partially restored. Justice is partially restored only in the case of Edgar. The cost is immense. The death of Lear, Cordelia, Gloucester, Edmund, and the sister, they emphasize the overwhelming tragedy in the entire play. So the key ideas that are getting reflected in this act is justice versus tragic inevitability. So justice, that whether the good are getting rewarded and the evil is getting punished, and tragic inevitability means that if you have taken an action, you have to see the consequences for that. Then there is the consequences of ambition and betrayal, the fragility of redemption. So redemption, when Edmund was finally deciding to repent, to have a sort of a redemption, it was too late. Then catharsis through loss and suffering. Catharsis is the basically the purpose of a tragedy as per Aristotle. So Aristotle has defined the purpose of tragedy to be catharsis, that is the evocation of fear and pity. So in this tragedy we get to see that we are feeling sad, we are feeling sympathetic, we have a sense of pity towards Cordelia and Lear, whatever has happened with them. So we can see that Shakespeare was able to achieve the goal of a tragedy, that is to evoke catharsis. Now, if we talk about the conclusion of the entire play, in the final acts of King Lear, William Shakespeare brings the tragedy to a powerful and devastating close. Lear and Gloucester gain deep insight. Both Lear and Gloucester are gaining deep insight. They are finally understanding the truth, but through the process of suffering. But this realization comes too late to save them. But the realization that they are having is too late, and they are not saved because of that, because it was too late for them to realize the right thing. The reunion of Lear and Cordelia offers brief hope. So the reunion between Cordelia and Lear, it offers the audience a brief hope, but eventually there was only destruction. So the play ends on a somber note, highlighting the fragility of power, the inevitability of suffering, and the harsh reality that justice is not always fulfilled in the human world. Right. So this play is often depicted as a play which shows that how in the natural world as well, in the human world as well, justice is not always catered, it is not always fulfilled. Now let us move to the next romantic comedy, that is Tempest. Let us understand that who are the characters. Okay, so the main protagonist in the Tempest is Prospero. And who's Prospero? He's the rightful Duke of Milan. Rightful Duke of Milan means he's not the actual Duke, but he is supposed to be the legitimate heir of the throne. Now, after his brother Antonio seized his title and prosperity, Prospero was exiled. So he's Prospero. He is supposed to be the rightful Duke of Milan, but because the usurping of the throne by his brother Antonio, his power has been seized and he was exiled. Okay, next we have Antonio, the brother who has taken away and seized the dukedom of Prospero. So this is Antonio, and he envies his brother. So he was envying, he was jealous of his brother. That is why he has usurped the throne. Then we have Alonso. He is the king of Naples who profited from the seizure of Prospero's dukedom. Right. So he is the king of Naples, and he was one of the person who was getting benefit with the seizure of the throne of Prospero. Right. Then we have Ariel. Ariel is a spirit of the air who works for Prospero. Then Caliban is another servant of Prospero on the new island in which he is living on. Then we have Ferdinand and Miranda. Miranda is the daughter of Prospero, and Ferdinand is the love interest of Miranda and also the son of Alonso. Right. Then we have Sebastian. Sebastian is Alonso's brother. Alonso is the person who is benefiting. So, and Alonso is the brother of Sebastian. So Alonso's brother who plots to murder the king and seize his throne. Then we have Gonzalo. Gonzalo is a person who is helping Prospero when he is being exiled. He is the person who is helping him with the necessary resources. He's helping him with the books from which Prospero is learning magic. Right. So Gonzalo is the person who has helped both Prospero and Miranda when they come to the new island. So these are the main characters. Now let us. Okay. So we have discussed Ariel. Ariel and Caliban both are the servants of Prospero when he is living on the island. Ferdinand and Miranda both are the couple. Alonso, he is one of the person who got benefit. Antonio is the brother who has usurped the kingdom. Right. Then Stefano and Trinculo, these are all a minor character which provides some comic relief in the play. We'll discuss about them in the later part. Now, block 3, which deals with Tempest. So we'll start with act number 1, which comprises unit number 11. So scene 1, what is happening in the scene 1? So I have already told you when we were talking about the storm in King Lear that the storm in King Lear is coming in the climatic act, that is act number 3. but tempest itself is opening with a storm. So there is an opening chaos. So you can also understand that in tragedy, it starts with the calmness and it's end in chaos, while uh, a romantic comedy starts with chaos and it ends in reconciliation, right? So the play begins dramatically with a violent storm at sea. So what is happening? The play is beginning dramatically with a violent storm that is coming up in the sea. A ship carrying King Alonso of Naples, his son Ferdinand, his brother Sebastian, and Antonio, Prospero's brother, is caught in the tempest. So, what is happening? There is a storm in the sea, because of which there is a ship that is getting stuck in the storm. And who are the people on the ship? There is Alonso, king of Naples, his son Ferdinand, his brother Sebastian, and Antonio, who is the brother of Prospero. They are all caught up in the storm. The sailors struggle to control the ship while the nobles panic and interfere. So, what is happening? The sailor is trying to struggle to control the ship, while the nobles, the people who were there on the ship, they are panicking and interfering in his struggle to control. Now, what is the significance? Established disorder and confusion shows the power of nature. It shows that nature is the utmost powerful. Nature is having all the control over human beings. So, but this power of nature is actually not the power of nature. It is actually the power of Prospero's magic. Then breaks social hierarchy. It is breaking the social hierarchy because sailor who's coming from a lower strata is now having a choice to make the decision instead of the noble people. So this is also a sort of inversion of the hierarchical order. Now, scene two, what is happening? Prospero's island, revelation and control. In scene two, we get to see the island where Prospero is living after being exiled. Prospero is watching the storm with his daughter. So whatever is happening in the sea, Prospero is watching these things with his daughter Miranda. Right? So who is distressed by the suffering she imagines? And Miranda, because she's a very innocent soul, she is very much distressed because she cannot see people suffering. So Prospero assures her that no one has been harmed. Prospero is giving her assurance that don't worry, no one is harmed. Everyone on the ship is safe. Then Prospero's backstory. Prospero is revealing the backstory. So Prospero reveals that he was the rightful Duke of Milan. So we get to know that Prospero is the rightful heir of the throne of Milan, but he was betrayed by his brother. And who's the brother? Antonio. And he's also one of the person who's there on the ship. So who with Alonso? So Antonio has betrayed Prospero along with Alonso, usurped his position and exiled him. So both of them, they make use of the power. They collaborated with each other in usurping the throne and exiling Prospero and his daughter. Prospero and infant Miranda were set adrift and eventually reached this island. So they were both exiled and they finally reached to this particular island on which they are living right now. Now, what are the important ideas that are reflected in Act number 1? There is betrayal and political ambition, legitimate versus illegitimate power. So even in King Lear, we get to see there was a legitimate and an illegitimate hire, Edmund and Edgar. In the same manner, when we are talking about that Prospero was the legitimate Duke of Milan, this means that in the hierarchical sense, Prospero was somebody who is actually the ideal person to be on the throne. Then knowledge, Prospero's books are a source of authority for him because he has learned all the magical powers from the books. Now, Act number 2, which deals with unit number 12. So what is happening in scene number 1? So scene number 1 is about political conspiracy. So Alonso, Sebastian, Antonio, and others wander the island. So after getting struck by a tempest, by a storm, all these people, they are wandering on the island, believing Ferdinand to be dead. And they believe that Ferdinand has died in the storm. Alonso is grief-stricken because he is very much saddened by the assumed death of his son Ferdinand. Now, Antonio's manipulation. Antonio persuades Sebastian to kill Alonso. So, what is Antonio doing? Antonio is persuading Sebastian, which is the brother of Alonso, to kill Alonso and become the king of Naples, right? So he's actually suggesting Sebastian to do something that he has done with his brother, right? So he has seized the throne of Milan from Prospero. He's suggesting the same thing to Sebastian, that you should kill your brother so that you can get the throne of Naples. Now, what is the significance? Evil repeats itself. If there is a person who is evil in character, that evil overpowers the person and it repeats itself. Power corrupts continuously. If you are going after power, there is no end to your greed. Political ambition is cyclical. If you have political ambition, if you have an ambition for power and control, this is cyclical in nature. If you have achieved one thing, then you will focus on the next, then you will focus on the next. So there is a continuous cycle. The plot fails when Ariel intervenes, waking Gonzalo before the murder can be executed. So, what is happening? The plot is failing because Ariel, the spirit working for Prospero, is intervening in between. And because of that interference, Gonzalo, the person who has helped Prospero, he is waking up and the execution cannot be implemented. So, Gonzalo's utopian vision. So, Gonzalo imagines an ideal society without hierarchy, wealth, or labor. So, Gonzalo is somebody who's living in his own la la land, and he's imagining a utopian society where there is no class structure, where there is no corruption, where there is no labor, where everybody lives in harmony. So, if we talk about the interpretation of the scene too, there is a comic subplot which involves Caliban, Stefano, and Trinculo. So Trinculo is a jester, and Stefano a drunken butler. So Trinculo is a jester. So jesters are usually used in the comedies of Shakespeare to provide some comic relief. Then Stefano, who is Stefano, he is a drunken butler, and they both are meeting Caliban. Caliban is the servant, the forced servant of Prospero. So Caliban mistakes Stefano for a god. So what is happening? Caliban is misunderstanding Stefano to be a god, and he's thinking that he's the person who can free me from Prospero, because Prospero has killed the mother of Caliban, Sycorax, which was the witch who was ruling the island. So initially, when Prospero entered the island, there was Sycorax who was ruling the island. So what Prospero did is killed Sycorax, and he basically trapped Caliban, that you have to serve for me. So there we can see this idea of colonial power as well, because what is colonialism? When somebody from the external area, somebody from a foreign land is coming to your land, and that person is trying to have control over your place. This is what colonialism is all about. So Caliban is just like Prospero is the ideal and the legitimate Duke of Milan. In the similar manner, Caliban is also the higher of the island, which has been taken up by Prospero, right? So there is this idea of colonialism getting represented in terms of Prospero and Caliban. So because Caliban was uh, enslaved by Prospero, right? So he has been enslaved, and he was asked to work for him. He was living under the control, under the power of Prospero. So he wanted freedom from that control, and that is why he is assuming that it might be possible that Stefano might help him to overthrow Prospero. So what is the significance? It provides comic relief with serious undertone. Serious undertone is there because Caliban is actually thinking about his own freedom. He wants to be free. He wants to have his own freedom. He wants to take his own decision. He wants to have power. So it parodies the political rebellion, represent Renaissance humanism and idealism, contrast with the corruption of others. Now, Act 2, overall ideas, there is repetition of betrayal because Antonio is asking Sebastian to kill his brother. There is illusion of power because Caliban is believing Stefano to be a god. There is comic inversion of serious themes because Caliban is thinking that this drunken butler can help him in the inversion of authority of Prospero. Then contrasting visions of society is also there. Then if we talk about the act number 3, which is comprising the unit number 13. So in the act 3, what is happening? Ferdinand's labor and love. We get to see Ferdinand's labor and love. Initially, in the act number one, we have seen that all the people who were there on the boat, they are assuming that Ferdinand has died in the storm, but Ferdinand is actually alive, and we get to see him over here that he is falling in love at first sight with Miranda, and to basically fulfill his love, he is doing a lot of efforts towards Miranda. So this is what we get to see in this particular act, where he is doing labor to achieve and fulfill his love. So Ferdinand is made to carry logs by Prospero. Prospero is asking Ferdinand to carry the logs so that he can understand whether he is the right person for his daughter or not. Right? So he is trying to check that whether Ferdinand is the right partner for Miranda or not. That is why he is giving him some task that you should carry these logs. So basically, he's just trying to test his loyalty towards Miranda, and that is why he's asking him to do all these things. Now, Miranda offers to help, but he refuses. So when Prospero is asking Ferdinand to carry the logs, he's carrying the logs and he's facing a bit of hardship while doing it. So Miranda is offering help because she's also in love with Ferdinand. So she is offering him help, but he is refusing, valuing honor and efforts, because he is valuing the honor and effort. They confess their love and agree to marry. So in this particular act, we also get to see the subversion of the gender roles. And how is that happening? Because usually we see that the man proposes the women, right? But in this case, Miranda is the person who's proposing to Ferdinand. So there is some version of gendered identity as well, right? So what is happening? So when this he was carrying the log and Miranda was trying to help him in carrying the logs, so she is offering him help. He is rejecting because he wants to honor the decision of Prospero, and he wants to put his efforts for his love. And during that process, what is happening? Both of them are confessing their love for each other. Now, what is the significance? Love as pure and ideal. This act shows that love is pure, it is ideal. Labor as a test of worth. Usually, hardships are a test through which you can prove your worth. Contrast with corrupt relationship elsewhere. So, the love, the ideal love between Ferdinand and Miranda, which is not based on any political gain, is actually contrasting with the relationship elsewhere. It is contrasting with the corrupt relationship, the other kind of relationship that are depicted in the play. So then there is scene number 2, Caliban's conspiracy deepens. So what was the conspiracy that Caliban was having? To overthrow Prospero, to kill Prospero. So Caliban pursued Stefano and Trinculo to kill Prospero. So what is happening? He is trying to persuade Stefano, the drunken butler, and Trinculo, the jester, to kill Prospero, because he is assuming that both of them are powerful, but in reality, they have no power. So he instructs them to destroy Prospero's book, which are the source of his power. So what is he doing? He is instructing both of them that you should go and destroy Prospero's book, because these are the source of his power. Now, what are the key insights that we get from this scene? That knowledge is equivalent to power. Prospero is powerful because he has knowledge, and he has gained that knowledge because of the reading of the books. Now, Caliban understands Prospero's true strength. Caliban has understand that the true strength of Prospero's character is coming from his power that he has acquired through knowledge. However, the plot is ridiculous and driven by drunkenness. It highlights its futility. Right? The plot is ridiculous because it is driven by drunkenness, comic and humorous aspect, but it is also highlighting the futility of the efforts. Then scene number 3, the magical banquet and moral confrontation. So Alonso and his companions are presented with a magical banquet. So just as they are about to eat, so there is a magical buffet that is presented for all the people who were restrained, who were there on the ship. Just as they are about to eat, the food vanishes, because it is a magical buffet. The food is completely vanishing when they are trying to eat it. Now when this happens, Ariel is appearing and he is terrifying, because his form is very terrifying. He is a powerful figure, he is magical figure. So Ariel accuses them of their crime. So Ariel is appearing at that point of time, and he is accusing each one of them for the sins that they have done against Prospero, and declares that their suffering is the punishment for their sins. So when he's coming, he's confronting these people that whatever you are suffering right now, whatever the punishment that has been given to you, it is because of the sins that you have committed towards Prospero, and you all deserve this. Now, what are the impact of the scene on the characters? Alonso feels deep guilt. Alonso, the father of Ferdinand, he's feeling guilty of his actions, and he's actually repenting, and he's also assuming that his son has also died because of his sins. Now, others react with fear or denial, but others, they are a bit fearful, but they are also in denial that we have done nothing wrong. Then the overall significance of the act, movement from external action to internal realization. Initially, there was only external action, there was a storm that is taking place, but there is an internal realization on the part of Alonso because he's feeling guilty for his action. Then there is emergence of guilt and repentance. There is emergence of guilt and repentance, strengthening of love versus failure of conspiracy plot. The love between Ferdinand and Miranda is getting strengthened, while the conspiracy that Caliban was trying to make with Trinculo and Stefano, it is a complete failure. It is complete futile because these people are having no power. So use of illusion as moral and psychological tool. The use of illusion, the magic that Ariel was using in order to create a magical buffet so that they can have a realization. It is a psychological tool. Then overall movement that we get to see from act 1 to act 3. In act 1, it is all chaotic. It established the conflict and the control. Act 2 shows corruption and failed conspiracies. Act 3 shows the action towards love, repentance, and moral reckoning. So this is the flow of the movements in these acts. Now if we talk about the themes, the play shows how power and control are exercised through Prospero. So it shows that how power and control is being exercised by Prospero, who is making use of magic to rule the island and influence others. It raises questions about whether power is fairly used or selfishly. So it is also raising question that whether when he's using power, it is used fairly or it is used selfishly. It also reflects the idea of colonization, right? So it is reflecting ideas of colonization because Prospero is coming from a foreign land and he's trying to have his control over the island because he's dominating Caliban, suggesting how stronger individual or group take control over others. This is all colonization. The play constantly blur illusion and reality as magical events like the storm and disappearing banquet are not real but help reveal deeper truth. So there is a blurring of illusion and reality because the storm that happened was not real, it was orchestrated by the magical powers of Ariel and Prospero. Now, betrayal and ambition are important, seen in Antonio's action and his attempt to repeat the same in case of Sebastian, showing how the desire for power can lead to wrongdoing. So, how your ambition, overarching ambition, can make you do wrong things. At the same time, the play employs to move towards forgiveness rather than revenge. So, play also move towards forgiveness. Prospero is also thinking about the possibility of forgiving the people instead of giving them punishment. The theme of freedom is explored through Ariel, who longs to be free, and Caliban, who resists being enslaved. Ariel wants to get freedom, and Caliban is resisting his enslavement. So both of them want freedom. Love is presented through Miranda and Ferdinand as pure and hopeful, offering a contrast to the corruption, and uh, they are actually contrasting with the surroundings that is there around them. Finally, the play shows that knowledge is power. Finally, the play is reflective of the knowledge of power, right? So basically, it means that power is coming because you are knowledgeable. So knowledge is the utmost power. So Prospero's controls come from his learning and his book, suggesting that intelligence and education can shape authority and power. Now, there are certain MCQs based on whatever we have discussed in this particular lecture so that you can understand how well you have understood the ideas. Let us discuss these MCQs. I have also marked the answers for you. So first, you should try answering them yourself and then you can look at the answers. Right, so the storm in Act 1 is primarily A carefully controlled illusion because it was orchestrated. Prospero lost his dukedom mainly because he neglected his duties for study. He was overthrown by the people. He was defeated in the battle. He willingly gave up power. It is answer number A, right? Because he was overthrown by the people. Prospero is has lost the dukedom mainly because he was overthrown by the people, particularly his brother. Now, Ariel's attitude towards Prospero can be best described as fear mixed with loyalty. So Ariel is loyal towards Prospero, but it is because of the fear that he is having from him. Caliban's claim to the island is based on inheritance from his mother. I have told you that how Sycorax was the person who was owning the island, but Prospero killed Sycorax and he enslaved Caliban. So Caliban is the actual hire because he's getting that inheritance from his mother. Now, Ferdinand proves his love for Miranda by performing hard labor willingly. The carrying of the logs, this was the hard labor that he was performing. And when Miranda was offering to help, he said, no, I will do it on my own. Right, so let us discuss about the conclusion. Act 1 to 3 of Tempest, they establish a carefully controlled dramatic world where Prospero orchestrates, he plans the events through the use of magic so that he can restore the order, justice, and harmony, and he can get the throne back. The storm initiates not just physical displacements but moral and psychological confrontation as well. So, as the narrative progresses, the nobles are forced to face their guilt, especially Alonso. The cycle of betrayal continues because Antonio is persuading Sebastian to do the same thing. The love between Miranda and Ferdinand emerges as a symbol of renewal and future harmony. The comic rebellion of Caliban, Stefano, and Trinculo, where they were basically planning against, conspiring against Prospero, that how can we overpower him, how can we kill him and have the power. So this was all futile. Prospero's use of illusion becomes a tool not merely of control but of moral correction and self-realization. So thus by the end of Act 3, the play moves from chaos towards introspection, towards redemption, towards understanding the sins, preparing for reconciliation and forgiveness in the later acts. So I hope whatever we have discussed in this lecture about King Lear, the conclusion of King Lear, that how there was a partial justice that was restored in King Lear by the subplot of Edgar Edmund in Gloucester, because Edgar has finally overpowered Edmund. So this was the partial justice that we get to see in the tragedy. Now when we are talking about the comedy, the Tempest, it is based on the entire idea that how a brother has betrayed his elder brother so that he can have power because he wanted to be the Duke of Milan. Right, so the entire idea is basically based upon this absorption of the throne by a younger brother, because as per the British society, the inheritance has been given to the elder brother, right? So if there is a father who's dying, then the throne will move towards the elder brother and not the younger one. So this is the theme of primogeniture that is very much prevalent at that point of time, and because of that, he was very envious, right? Antonio was very jealous of his brother because he's not getting the power, he's not getting the dukedom, and that is why he's usurping his brother from the throne and he is sitting on the throne. So this was the main idea that was getting reflected. Then how Prospero is coming to a new island and he is basically using his power to control the people of that island. So he's also being a colonizer there. He's also dominating the other people. So whatever has been done to him, he's doing it to other people as well, right? So there is a sort of what we can say paradox that we can see in the behavior of Prospero as well, right? Then there is the theme of love that is getting reflected, the ideal love between Miranda and Ferdinand, because their love is full of innocence. They are both very innocent people, they are both loyal, and they are completely contrasting with the corruption that they see in their nearby environment. So I hope whatever we have discussed in this lecture is clear to you, and we'll be meeting again in the next lecture where we'll be concluding with the romantic comedy, The Tempest by Shakespeare, and we'll be starting with the final tragedy, that is Hamlet. Right? So in the next lecture, we'll start with Hamlet. We'll discuss maybe one act of Hamlet, and then we'll move towards the subsequent acts in the next lecture, right? So next we'll in the next lecture it is going to be a fourth lecture where we'll be starting with Hamlet. In the fifth lecture we'll completely be concluding with Hamlet, and in the final and sixth lecture we'll be having a complete recall and revision of whatever we have done in the entire course. So we'll be dealing with all the four comedy and tragedies. We'll be having a recap of all that in the final lecture. So I hope this class was helpful for you, and whatever we have discussed is clear to you. But if you have any queries, I'll be happy to resolve that. And we'll be meeting again on next Saturday. So if you have any queries, you can ask me there. Right? Thank you so much. And we'll be meeting again on the next Saturday.